Now, this is Karl Marx, not a common picture of him, but he was a young man. He was a good-looking young man. He was Jewish in ethnicity, but he was a Christian in background. People don't know that. But he was a committed Christian until he encountered the materialistic, atheistic ideas as a student at the University of Berlin. As a matter of fact, he talked about, indeed, how he left Christianity and became an atheist as a result of his exposure at the University of Berlin. And if you read some of his writings he wrote when he was a Christian in high school, they were really well done. I mean, he would win stars today among the evangelical community for his writings. And there you can see on a Cuban stamp, and World War II especially, and World War I, the concern for a lot of the sides was communism. And the concern still today is communism in North and South Korea. And we had a hard time with communism because, and I'll try to briefly mention, the problem with communism is to work you have to eliminate or reduce the effect of Christianity, because they're contradictory, as I mentioned before. And so therefore, the Marxist philosophy basically required some form of atheism. And this is why communist societies, without exception as far as I know, were opposed to theism, period. Very opposed to theism. And so when communist government took over, one of the first things they did was to reduce the influence of Christianity, or ideally reduce Christianity to non-existence if they could. That was the idea. And his worldwide influence, we're talking about Karl Marx. In the 19th century, Marx had such a direct, deliberate, and powerful influence on mankind, no one has had a direct and powerful influence on mankind as Karl Marx. And this is Isaiah, who's a historian, and he did a biography on Karl Marx and said Karl Marx clearly influenced World War I, primarily World War II. Enormous influence. Still today has an enormous influence. The Origin, Darwin's book, The Origin of Species, impressed Marx perhaps as deeply as any book he ever read in his maturity. And this is a quote from Cope in 1972. So Marx was very influenced by Darwin, clearly influenced. And another aspect of that is that Marx's famous saying, "Religion is the opiate of the people," he believed that basically we need to overthrow the bourgeois, the governments, and take over, violent overthrow. And the church says, well, don't do that. That's not a very good thing to do. Just be a good person, and in heaven you'll get your reward. And that's why Marx said Christianity is the opiate of the people. They need to realize there is no heaven. There is no hell. Overthrow your masters. Workers, the world, unite. Overthrow your leaders in industry. Take over and demand your fair share of the profits of a company. And we know that doesn't work. A brief discussion as to why. Wherever that's been tried, it's failed. Venezuela is the best example. Since they become communist, probably one of the most successful countries in South America, because they have more oil than almost any country in the world. Probably one of the most successful takeovers was Venezuela. Probably one of the greatest failures was Venezuela. And now they're right in the streets. They're starving. They're having a difficult time. Why? The reason why is because communism basically says each takes what he needs and gives what he can. And they said all people were equal. Okay? And the problem was when you apply that, well, in China they had a problem. They wanted the doctors to spend time sweeping the floors. But the custodians couldn't spend much time in surgery. So they had a problem. And fortunately, well, for them, they noticed this problem and they, of course, turned it around. By the way, China has become highly capitalistic, and you know who helped them. They invited Americans to go over there and say, we really got a screwed up country. We got 1 billion people and massive starvation. What can we do to fix up our country? And we basically said, what you need is capitalism, and this is how it works. Not, unbridled capitalism, but humane capitalism, because there has to be motives to work. Each takes what he can. Well, I could use this, and this, and gives what he can. Well, look, I'm busy today. I don't have time to. We take more than we need. We give less than we can. So it doesn't work because the fact is, well, the Bible says, he who does not work does not eat. So we need a motivation for people to work, to give back. And Christians, of course, have a very strong motivation because our church stresses that. And Jesus said, the way you treat the least of them is how you treated me. So we have values which we realize that we need to help other people. But on the other hand, we often need encouragement. And therefore, Marxism doesn't work, even for us. Or at least doesn't work as Karl Marx felt. Okay, Marx became a Darwinist. He passionately detested any belief in the supernatural. And he openly denounced all religion as the opiate of the people. In nearly every nation, and I don't know of any exceptions, where the communists took power, the churches were either abolished or neutralized. What they would do is they would build a school next to a church and say, well, this is too close, got to tear the church down. And the only country in the world, at least at this time, that had separation of church and state was the communist countries, primarily Russia. The separation of church and state is not, of course, in our Constitution. It's not there. There's no requirement to separate the church and the state. And I guess I'm dating myself, but I remember in school we prayed, sang the songs, patriotic songs. I remember to this day in third grade we had a teacher. We learned this song, Jesus walked this lonesome valley. He had to walk it by himself. Something like this. Hey, it's been 50 years. You will have to walk this lonesome valley. You will also have to walk this valley by yourself. Close. So I think one of the main Christian influences I had was in a secular school when I was in third grade.